Hello again, and welcome to the final segment of the 2020 Arts and Culture Awards presented by Arts Missoula. I'm Tom Benson, the Executive Director of Arts Missoula. This year, we're recognizing our most recent winners with a brief video, and we plan to honor each one in person at next year's Arts and Culture Awards lunch to be held in April of 2021. The Arts and Culture Awards were first presented in 1999, and at that time, Arts Missoula presented one award, and it was for cultural achievement. Over the years, we've added more honors to this program, specifically recognizing businesses that support the arts, individual artists for their lifetime achievement, art educators, and those who have embarked on a unique artistic or cultural vision. With the addition of these new awards, we felt the need to change the name of the original cultural achievement to Cultural Ambassador, though its definition remains the same as it did in 1999. It is given to an individual or a couple who have supported Missoula's arts community or helped to advance the arts or cultural diplomacy through volunteer, administrative, philanthropic, professional, or legislative efforts. This year, we recognize the contributions of Nancy Matthews for her international connections in bringing art from around the world to Missoula. As the wife of a Foreign Service officer, Nancy has spent most of her adult life in the international field. After returning from Cairo in 1980, where her husband, Service Officer H. Freeman Matthews, served as Deputy Chief of Mission, she worked on a number of international conferences and exchanges. In 1983, she joined the staff of the Meridian International Center in Washington, D.C., a nonprofit, nonpartisan diplomacy center that connects leaders through culture and collaboration to drive solutions for global challenges. In 1992, she was appointed Vice President for Arts and Communication and then Vice President for Arts and Cultural Affairs. Nancy directed the growth of Meridian's international exhibition programs and the establishment of the Meridian's highly successful traveling exhibition service. She organized major exhibitions from many countries, including Vietnam, South Africa, Iran, and China, bringing them to the United States and sending them on tour throughout the United States. She also organized exhibitions of American contemporary art, which traveled abroad. The underlying purpose of all these projects was to carry out Meridian's mission to promote international understanding. In 2001, shortly before she moved to Missoula, she curated an art exhibit from Iran. For the first time in more than 2 decades, Americans viewed art from Iran. She continued her collaboration with Iranian artists and subsequently brought their work to Missoula. In 2005, with the Montana Museum of Art and Culture at the University of Montana, she helped to bring to Missoula Ancient Threads, Newly Woven, the recent art from China's Silk Road, a show of contemporary Chinese art. This was followed by Out West, the Great American Landscape, which featured Western artists and went on tour throughout China. It opened in America at the Dana Gallery. She followed up this project in 2012 with a multi-genre event entitled China in Missoula, a community-wide collaborative project with 8 of Missoula's galleries and several international programs at the University of Montana, the Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater, the Roxy Theater, Southgate Mall, the Missoula Public Library, the Montana World Affairs Council, and the Chinese Embassy in Washington, D.C. In 2014, Nancy brought the Chinese Minister for Cultural Affairs to Missoula for a collaboration with the Missoula Children's Theater. In 2015, MCT took their production of The Princess and the Pea to Beijing. MCT directors directed Chinese children in the first ever English-speaking production of The Princess and the Pea. In 2016, Chinese National Theater sent students to Missoula to perform with Missoula students. This was followed by Missoula High School students who were studying Mandarin to perform in Beijing. Nancy was the driving force responsible for bringing to Missoula part of the William Andrews Clark art collection previously exhibited at the Corcoran Museum in Washington, D.C. The Montana Museum of Art and Culture was one of the very few, if any, facilities outside the D.C. area to receive any part of this collection. This collection, from one of Montana's most famous copper kings, has a current worth in the millions of dollars. Special thanks to Chuck Leonard, president of the Montana World Affairs Council, for this nomination.
Hi, my name is Chuck Leonard, and I nominated Nancy Matthews for this year's Cultural Ambassador Award. I first met Nancy back in 2016 when I became a board member for the Montana World Affairs Council, of which Nancy was already a member. She was also a board member for the Montana Museum for Arts and Culture and for the Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater. And prior to coming to Missoula, she served as vice president for the Arts at Meridian International Center in Washington, D.C. Now, many of you know Nancy was responsible for bringing the Clark art collection that was previously at the Corcoran Museum in Washington, D.C., and she brought that here to Missoula, Montana. We are one of the very few facilities outside the Washington, D.C. area that received any part of this collection. And the collection has been valued at millions of dollars. This alone, I thought, was sufficient to nominate her for this award, but I then called her daughter and Barb Kustra, past director of the Montana Museum for Culture and the Arts, to get some background biographical information, and was astounded to learn all of what Nancy has done both globally and locally here in Montana and Missoula. And I'm going to have to read this because it's extensive. She traveled to China, Cuba, Germany, Iran, Israel, Senegal, Singapore, South Africa, and Vietnam to work with local curators and museums at all of these countries. She brought two major exhibitions here to Missoula: Ancient Threads Newly Woven, an exhibition from China's Silk Road, and Out West, a show of American Western art, which ultimately traveled to 7 cities in China. She founded the magazine Cairo Today, which became Egypt Today, a publication still distributed throughout the Mideast. She also co-authored the book True Colors with Hillary Clinton and others. In 2014, Nancy brought the Chinese Minister for Cultural Affairs to Missoula. The minister, Nancy, and the Missoula Children's Theater brokered a collaboration with the Chinese National Theater for Children. In 2015, MCT took their production of Princess and the Pea to Beijing. MCT directors also directed Chinese children in their first ever English-speaking production. In 2016, the Chinese National Theater sent students to Missoula to perform with and for the Missoula community. Nancy has had a career rich in travel, art, and diplomacy. She has quietly played an important role in art and cultural exchanges. We are incredibly fortunate Nancy has decided to call Missoula home. She's an extraordinary woman of extraordinary talents, and I'm very pleased she is being recognized with this year's Cultural Ambassador Award. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in for our Arts and Culture Awards this year. We look forward to seeing many of you when we can meet again in person. For Arts Missoula, I'm Tom Benson.